Welcome, Minecrafters, to the Minecraft Podcast. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am so super quadruple stoked to have Jen Anderson on here with us today as our speaker extraordinaire. Jen is the founder of Thankful Hearts Coaching, and she's going to explain this because I don't even know either, okay? So she's an accountability ally and support coach. So let's just give her a big Minecraft welcome. Woo! Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Kimberly. It is so exciting to be here. I love this. And I love watching your podcast and just listening to you all the time. So it's my pleasure and honor to be here.
That is so sweet. Podcasts are just a happening thing right now. You get to really get some wisdom bombs dropped on you on the way into work or out in the garden or whatever. It's just great. So I have to tell you, Jen and I become super fast friends in our mastermind group. And the Minecrafters hear a lot about the mastermind group because I'm talking about y'all a lot of time, a lot. So we're very kindred spirits. We're interested in a lot of things. And it occurred to me that Jen, after a lot of these conversations, Jen is an expert on a topic that is really tough for a lot of people, which is the whole idea of setting boundaries. And so this is what she's going to talk about today. And I guess let's start out, Jen, by beginner's mind, so people may not even, maybe even, sort of explain what a boundary is. I know it sounds silly, but one person's idea may not be another person's idea. And then explain
Absolutely.
What the foundation, after you define it, maybe explain what the foundation for boundaries is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a boundary is simply a guideline that you are setting so that somebody else knows how to treat you. It's not ever, I can't say that enough, ever meant to control someone. It's only ever meant to say what you can put up with and tolerate and what you can't, how you need to be treated. Actually, I was doing a virtual meetup last night and we were talking about boundaries, and one of the questions that came up was, how would you define boundaries versus self-care? And I said, I would tell you that boundaries are self-care. Boundaries, setting healthy boundaries, are actually a very good foundation for self-love. Because when you love yourself enough to know what you need to prioritize for yourself, you know how to set those healthy boundaries. So it's all about, the foundations for boundaries are self-respect, self-love, how you're going to interact in mutual, or have mutual respect in relationships. So a lot of times I think of boundaries and I think it's how I want people to treat me, but I also think, how do I want to treat them? And so it's okay to ask people, is this okay with you if I do this? How would you like this done? That's a very kind and amazing way to learn about people's boundaries. The big issue with boundaries is that we don't clearly and effectively communicate how we need to be treated. We just assume people can read our minds.
And we can't.
And that's where the big issues come in.
Oh, I 100% agree with that, because we can all think we're walking around with our black belts in mind reading, right? Especially if we know somebody well. Yes. We walk in and we say, honey, I know how you feel. Really the only way we know, and to know what somebody's thinking, the only way to know is to ask, right?
Yes.
100%. So the other thing I like too, I like that you started us out with the whole idea of self-values being the bricks. That's so Brene Brown. Because we can't take care of a self we don't value.
Right.
Just not having.
Right. And I always tell people, especially my clients, I'm you're defining, no, that's not it. You're telling people how to treat you.
Right.
So by you walking around, it all comes into this. So I have this motto that I use in my coaching, and it's belief plus boundaries equals bliss. shifting limiting beliefs, setting healthy, empowering boundaries helps us find our bliss. And it's so true, because we can't find our joy and our bliss when we walk around saying, oh, I'm so dumb. And our kids hear us say that. So our kids start thinking we're dumb because we're saying that out loud in front of them, around them, whatever it is. And we do that with friends. We do that with coworkers, with spouses, with parents, whatever. We teach them how to treat us.
Oh, totally.
So it goes both ways, negative and positive.
Right.
Teach them how to treat you positively. Love yourself, and that will follow. That's such a beautiful thing.
Jen, you're singing my tune, because I say that a lot. I mean, we teach people how to treat us all day long. Whether it's passive or active, we can actively be, with healthy self-esteem and everything, be saying, you know what, that's a little too much for me today. I'm at my limit,
Yeah.
And when we open the door for when we are exhausted, and we have welcome tattooed on our forehead, we are also teaching people to go ahead and walk on us, because it's just fine with us.
Yes. Yes.
And then we get mad at them because they did it.
Right. Or we get mad because they should have known better.
They should have known better.
And
Just because I said walk all over my face doesn't mean you needed to do it.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. No, I say this all the time. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love how you just verbalized that, because that like dips into a whole other thing, because I'm all about living deliberately, which, like in general, the boundaries are fit into that, but living deliberately, because we walk around all day long making decisions, little ones like ketchup or mustard, all the way to buy the house, date somebody, marry, the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we do far better when we are actively making decisions consciously versus passively autopilot, throwing caution to the wind, because that's how a lot of this unconscious crap surges from the vault and leaks out of our pores to tell the world to walk on our faces, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, absolutely.
Now that's a good place to go, because I was going to ask you about types of boundaries, but before we get to that, let's see if you can have fun with this one. Let's say either way, but what might sort of be in somebody's hard drive or wiring, I like to say in the vault. That's a nicer way to say something, unconscious mind, super Freudian, but what type of adult, like what happened with them along the way that may have let's just say her, him, they, doesn't matter, set up to maybe struggle with this at first before they did some inner work. What do you think's going on sometimes?
I think that's where the limiting beliefs come in. I think it's the conditioning from our childhood that sets us up to not know we need boundaries, to not understand how to set boundaries, to not even, like, going back to how we teach others to treat us, to not even know, that we're doing that. It's such a subconscious thing. And I know, like, for me, I was raised that, you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't put those things out there publicly. So then I thought that by being quiet, by being humble, by not saying all those things, I was doing the right thing, when really I wasn't speaking up for myself. I wasn't giving myself the love and the care that I needed. And I think that's the core of the issue for at least for the women that I come into contact with. That just always seems to be the core, is there's some underlying conditioning that they have that they haven't gotten over that holds them there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, when I think of this whole boundary thing, Jen, honestly, it takes me straight to, and this is not everybody, so hear me, listeners, I try to stay away from polarized words in general, because they don't exist. However, the classic codependent behaviors are very, very common, such as people-pleasing and rescuing, which is a kind of a close cousin, and then the compulsive need to seek reassurance from relationships, which can drive a trustworthy partner insane. And a lot of that happens in the formative years, I think.
Absolutely.
And then lo and
Yes.
behold, we carry it like a suitcase into adulthood.
Yep.
And
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we get confused when it comes to. I feel like we really confuse young people because we tell them they're supposed to act a certain way. And then you become an adult. And now you're supposed to stand up for yourself no matter what. And I think it's just this confusing thing that I know, like, our generation was really raised with. You know, we're supposed to do certain things, but yet now it's the complete opposite. Or it's acceptable to not do those things. Or, you know, we're not doing it right. And it's, I don't know, that's just kind of crazy. But
it's good though, Jen. Can you think of an example of that for the younger folks listening?
so I feel like a good example of that would be, you know, like not, like, so for us, kids had to be quiet, right? Like when we were being raised, you know, it was like kids should be quiet, kids shouldn't be doing anything. So then we grew up, and a lot of people, I deal with a lot of women in their late 40s, 50s, 60s that don't have any clue how to stand up for themselves, how to say that they need something, because they were always told to be in the background and be quiet.
So, because I happen to know from my students, and I mostly traditional, 18, 19, 20, and the boundary setting, because they've actually asked me to do reels, because that's where their heads are, is reels, right? And I'm thinking 90 seconds, sure, but we'll touch on it. But it was quite, because I asked them once, and it was coming from every direction. Can you do things on boundaries and how to set them? So I think that this younger generation really doesn't have any idea either, even though they may not have been brought up in the silencing kind of atmosphere you're talking about. So I'm wondering if maybe this is coming from, because obviously, the diminished ability to set boundaries is coming directly from a feeling of unworthiness or whatever. There's a spectrum, right? So I wonder what's going on with the younger ones. The boundary setting seems so challenging.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I did youth work for like 17 years for 17 years, but I was a youth director for about 11 and a half. And it seems like the boundary thing is really, for the younger, is really more of a people pleasing. I want everyone to be happy with me. I don't want to upset anyone. At least the girls. I think the boundary thing for the boys that I experienced was just a sheer lack of, I don't know how to put that thought even into place. Like, I'm not even there yet.
Right.
Not that they didn't want to be there, but they just weren't there. But the girls always had this people pleasing. I don't want you to be mad at me. I don't want my mom to be mad at me. I want everybody to be my friend. And there was a lot of that I saw anyway. That was my
rejection,
experience.
Some kind of bad, like the bad feels. I don't want to experience the bad feels. Like rejection, guilt, shame, which says something's wrong with me, right? Well, I think that's pretty much in alignment with what I heard. I had it from both, the young men and the young women, but I do think there might be differences there for sure. But I think that and I'm wondering, because I got it from the room in general. That rolled out of them, Jen. That's exactly what you just said. What they said in their own words. Like, if I don't feel like going out one night, that's fine. But if I don't want to go out twice in a row, they'll stop asking me. I'll feel like, because that was a big fear, of socially messing up where you wouldn't be asked again, or feeling guilty, feeling all those things, right? And I'm wondering if, because the Gen Zs are so immersed in social media, if maybe this is playing a role, because there's no shut-off switch there. There are no boundaries in social media.
Right. And I would agree 100%. And I think, too, there's another small problem that you touched on, which isn't necessarily a boundary thing, but it could be, is that something to the effect of, if I tell somebody no twice,
Yeah.
one thing that I've started actually doing is, I'm sorry these haven't worked, that I could do this with you, but please don't stop asking me. I do really have that desire to do this with you. It's just the dates haven't lined up for me. And that's, it doesn't seem like a boundary, but that's a way to add a boundary in that still teaches them, oh, I should still come back to her.
Yeah, I would say it fits, Jen, because earlier you were making a wonderfully true statement about we teach people how to treat us all day long. So you're verbally teaching them, saying the planets just didn't align. Please don't misinterpret.
Right.
You gave clarity. I'm not, dismissing you or ditching you, or as the young ones would say, ghosting you.
Right.
It's just that, for reals, I had 2 root canal appointments back to back, whatever it is. They don't need your personal information, but I think that's great. And I appreciate you saying it now, because the younger listeners are really I find that, I don't know if it's just my students, but they're looking for a script, kind of. They're on the young end. You and I are a little more seasoned. But because you and I are more seasoned, you kind of get a handle on things as you go along. The younger ones don't have that sense of security just yet. And so they're looking for a script. So you just gave them a beautiful one.
Yeah.
Please don't misinterpret my pa for that.
Yes.
I'm just whatever.
Yep.
That was excellent.
Absolutely.
So how about, so that was really good. How about maybe can you explain maybe or describe some types of boundaries?
Yeah. So different types of boundaries are like, you have a physical boundary, which is your physical space. That's personal. You don't want people inside your physical space.
Right.
Emotional boundaries are what you can handle at that time. And you have every right to say, I am at capacity. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I need to go rest. I need to sit in front of Netflix and just be a zombie for a little bit. Whatever it is, stare at a wall. I have a good friend that says, I'm going to stare at the wall. And I'm like, that's great. And then I walked into her house and literally she was staring at the wall. And I was like, wow, she was serious. But that's how she zones out. That's how she, decompresses. There are mental, which are a lot like the emotional, except for that's giving your brain a chance to decompress.
Right.
And set that boundary. I mean, it doesn't have to be decompressing, but setting that boundary, like, I'm not going to talk negatively to myself anymore.
Right.
And that's setting a mental one. And then a really, really important one is a digital boundary.
Oh,
Set a boundary with your digital, any of it, the computer, your phone, the tablet, the Xbox, the TV, all of it. Set a boundary with it. You get to decide how much of it you're going to allow in your life, how little of it, and nobody else gets to dictate that for you. It's personal. You get to decide that.
I like that a lot. I actually put my cell phone to bed in the kitchen drawer that's right over there.
Yeah.
And I love these: physical, emotional, mental, and digital. I know for me, Jen, when I'm just done doing brainy stuff, I'm just like, here's the thing: I just want I Love Lucy. Or go out on the deck and stare at the moon when it's night out. That's like even better, actually.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot.
Take a break in the middle of the day and go out and get 10 minutes of sunshine on your face.
Yeah,
just go out and stare at the sky and just let the sun hit your face. Such a beautiful thing.
I love that. Actually, it's funny you say that, because I'm a big fan of the midday mindful minute. Got a bunch of reels on that, because, and Tony Robbins would actually say, he actually says 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes in the day, you don't have a life. So I'm just asking for one, but in the middle of the day, if all else fails, there's always the bathroom. Hopefully nobody's going to bother you in there, right?
Right,
Take
exactly.
1 minute and just breathe and get centered. That puts a boundary on
Yes.
the world. I'm in the potty, leave me alone.
Right. Right. Just
100%.
let me have it.
Yeah,
Yes.
or outside or whatever. That's fantastic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now this is a super good one because I'm thinking for everybody. I think this is also really good for the younger ones, but it's true for anybody 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 100, the centenarians, whatever, because as you know, Jen, until we do the inner work, things aren't going to change with the boundaries, really.
Right.
I think some of it
Right.
can get a little easier organically, but if there's some stuff going on, like there's an unhealthy, these unhealthy codependent partnerships and things like that. When you get rid of him, somebody else is gonna, in another outfit is going to show back up. It's just not different. So how signs that somebody would need stronger boundaries. I think
Yeah,
that's super interesting.
that is such a good question. I think the best thing that I can say is when you really start to feel overwhelmed,
Right.
resentful, consistently drained, like you have no energy left.
Oh,
So
totally.
that's a really good one. Like,
Yes.
I know when so you and I are in this mastermind, right? And we do go on trips where we spend 3 days together. I love those because they fill me up,
Me
they give
too.
me lots of good energy, and yes, they're exhausting in their own way because they're so packed and there's so much we're doing, but they're great. Where sometimes you might have a friend that you might spend 2 hours with, and you get done with those 2 hours and you feel just emotionally drained. Chances are you don't have strong boundaries set up with that person because you spent the whole time going, yeah, I don't really want to do that, but okay, sure, let's do that. Yeah, I don't really want to, that doesn't really work. Okay, sure, that's great, let's do that. And there's
Yes.
this exchange. And so that's really the sign is how do you feel when you're around people? Like, do you know how to check in with yourself and really evaluate how something went? And it might even be a boundary with you. You might have experienced something or done something and been like, oh, that was amazing and it couldn't have gone any better. Or you might be like, oh man, I let everybody I came in contact run around on me. I second guessed myself at every turn. I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't think I was good enough. And I'm exhausted. Yeah, of course you are. Go take some time for you and then sit down and evaluate what happened because you need to have that in black and white so that you don't repeat that. So that you can start setting those healthy boundaries because that's the key right there is that's the only way you're going to set the boundary is to know where you're lacking in boundaries.
Oh, I like that a lot. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. And my dear friend Oprah,
Yes.
I love her. She's just not aware of our relationship, but she talks about this a lot because with the boundary thing, she talks about our number one job being to keep ourselves filled up because
Yeah.
we cannot give what we do not have. So when we have that open door, walk on me policy, we are drained to the bone marrow. We've got
Yes.
nothing to give, and it's also people don't even respect it because people respect strength. So
Right.
so let's say the person who's driving around, the PTO and driving everybody's kids. I'm not saying not be a good person, of course, but doing doormatville, bringing everybody's kids, and then she gets annoyed people aren't saying thank you, and she's taken advantage of, and it's like this whole cycle. When as if you valued yourself, you would do one of the things or two of the things, bake the brownies, go home, rest, go for a run, something else, right? Balance.
Right.
People don't
Yes.
respect weakness. In
No.
reality, I'm just saying the truth.
Absolutely. That's 100% true. And people notice, like they know when you're being strong and when you're being weak.
Right.
They know. They learn, they pick it up quick. It's like they can smell it like an animal.
Oh, we
And
can
they're
smell
going to
it.
pounce on it almost every time.
People can, because we all had this experience. Somebody with I'm not talking about arrogant. I'm talking about authentic confidence. Just feels great in their skin. They feel whole and complete. When they walk in a room, right, they don't even have to talk. They just
Right.
own the room. People just turn and look at them and da-da-da-da. And the other reverse of that is true. Have you ever had somebody approach maybe a friend and they brought somebody new into the conversation? Their shoulders are kind of like that. And
they're all hunched down.
and they just, you want to say, I don't want to walk on you.
Right.
Please don't advertise that because you can feel the vibe, right?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
I think so too. I totally do.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about, so we're going to get our boundary setters, because that's who's listening here, I'm sure. When our boundary setters, I forget, I'm thinking who says this. Oh, it might be Brene Brown. Because she said,
Yeah, I think it is.
When you start setting your boundaries and people get pissed, she said, just remember that the only people who get pissed that you're setting boundaries are the people who benefited from you not having boundaries.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
100%. So how?
Yes.
So let's help or Jen, if you can help our listeners, if they have those initial like guilty feelings because they're new to it, we don't want to judge, right? They're coming into it, they're getting stronger, work in progress. How do they overcome that as they are becoming like, let's say, getting their blue belt?
Yeah, so really, I mean, it's going to sound very simplistic, but I promise you it's really not. It's practice. It's honestly it's like confidence. Some people have confidence, like the natural confidence, like we were just talking about, but you don't get better at anything unless you practice it.
100%.
And the same is with the guilt. So when you're feeling guilty, first you have to acknowledge that you're feeling guilty. And then you have to say, no, I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing it to be mean. If you're ever setting a boundary just to spite someone, you're not actually setting a boundary, you're punishing them.
Right, you're being passive aggressive or just aggressive. Right?
Yes. To me, that's all the same. Like it's punishment for somebody. It's not, and the same goes true for you. So if you're doing that to yourself, you're just trying to punish yourself. That's not what we want. That's not what anybody ever needs.
No.
What we need to do and what we want to do is say, that's okay. If I set a boundary with Kimberly and she's like, Chen, I don't want to do this. This isn't right. And you're taking away all the good stuff for me. I'm going to say, you know what, Kimberly, this is what I need. And you get to own your part in it. And you don't have to actually say this to the person, but it's a good example because you do need to say it to yourself. So I might go, Kimberly's got a part in this too. And this is what I need. So I don't own her emotions. I only own my reactions and my emotions. I don't own hers. She has to own her own. I don't carry them around. I don't put them on like a coat. I don't let them weigh me down.
I love that.
And that is the easiest way. Yes.
Right on.
It's hard. It takes practice. But the more you do it, the more you will stop the guilt cycle. Because they're not your emotions. They're somebody else's. And you can't control anyone else ever. You have no control over them.
You're singing my tune there.
I know.
Right into your power. And I love the practicing thing because a lot of times people think practice or rehearsal is just for, playing a musical instrument or whatever. I mean, I love that about Aristotle. We practice virtues like honesty or what, we lo and behold we get better at it. Of course we do. The brain loves patterns. So if you practice stepping into your power, talking back to the conditioned negative self-talk.
Yes.
Right? That it'll get easier.
Yes.
I think of that like a guitar. Like when you're playing the guitar, you get calluses and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, the calluses go away, and you're playing Margaritaville. It's the same kind of thing.
Exactly. And if you need an easy way to learn how to practice, stand in front of the mirror and have a conversation with yourself. That is how I was taught by a mentor of mine to practice what I needed to say to people that were harassing me at work. And he said, just practice, figure out what you're going to say in a kind voice, then go home and practice it. And I would stand in front of the mirror for an hour and just say it until I could say it without crying, without shaking. Those kinds of things. It's a great way to get that practice in and just say, I'm not going to let Kimberly manipulate the conversation. That's not really what's happening. But it's a great way to say, that's not what I'm going to do, and just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And eventually, when you're hit with that situation again, it's easy to say, hey, Kimberly, this is my turn to talk, not yours. And I'll let you talk in a minute. And you're doing it kindly, So it's this whole thing.
I love that. I'm a big fan of the mirror work.
Yes.
Even if that sounds, if somebody's in the place where this is all sounding super, they want to start the path. They want to start the path of really self-value. That's really what the path is, right?
Yes.
Worthiness. To start out smaller, if it might be hard for them to even look in the mirror in their eyes. And if they have to start out by something basic like great outfit,
Yes.
one positive thing, you look good today. It's a start, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, when it comes to boundaries, don't feel like you want to take them on all at once. Start with one boundary. Do one and kind of master that one. That one boundary that you need to set with that one person, or maybe it's one boundary with multiple people. Maybe you're always feeling like people are talking over you. So maybe you want to set that boundary and say, wait, I want to talk now. Please don't talk over me. Please don't. I see that all the time. I see that with my clients. I see it with people out in public. Like they're always talking over everybody because they're always waiting to say their thing. And that's a good boundary to set if you're feeling not seen and heard is, wait, I want to talk now. It's my turn. So that's why that keeps coming into my mind, because it's a great place to start, and you do that with everybody. Or if somebody starts talking over you, you just stop talking. And that gets them to realize, oh, I interrupted.
Right,
And so it doesn't always have to be words if you don't have the right words.
In that moment.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, Jen, it was just a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't like the person wasn't harsh or anything like that, but I just kind of naturally did that. So at a fabulous 59, because I'm not sure at like 20, I know I would have, but where was I? It doesn't even matter, but it was, and I said, because they kind of, they're good people, but there was a talk over situation, and it happened several times in a short time. I like this person. I said, hold on, I'm just going to finish my thought. And I watched in her face that she realized, because she is a good person. And I've certainly talked over people before, especially with my fast mind. Gotten way better at it. But my intention isn't that. My intention isn't that. It's just more of a wiring thing. But I realized when I said we were on the stairs, and she turned around and stopped dead in her tracks, smiled, and it was almost just like a nod, like I got it, good call. And it was a deposit in the self-esteem bank, because it happened like 2 or 3 times in a itty bitty. Right. It was just me trying to finish the same little mini story.
Right.
And I felt good. I think she probably, I'm guessing this, but it appeared by her facial expressions that it was kind of like, good call, I was wrong kind of look in the face, and you go ahead. And then it was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if it's done in a kind manner, most people will understand it. And I've told clients this too, is that if you correct someone or you set that boundary, and we kind of touched on this, but I'm gonna reiterate it, and they're good with it, and they say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry, I wasn't trying to hurt you or offend you or talk over you, fantastic, you can move on, you can move forward. If they get angry and they're like, oh, wasn't what I was doing, and this and this and this and this, you know what? Walk away.
100%.
Walk away, because that's not the person you want to be around anyway, and
100%.
They're not going to understand their boundary because they want to treat you that way. Walk away.
Right.
And
That's that's a super good point, because the people who are going to be, which I think most people will be, if it's an authentic situation, will be like the woman I was just she was like, wow, I didn't even, you could tell her face said it. I didn't realize I did that several
Right.
times in a row, and you go
Yeah.
ahead, you know. But if it's
Yes.
if it's somebody that does this knee jerky, you know, coming from an injured place, because that's what that is, right? That I can't be
Yes.
wrong
Yes.
or whatever it is. Then you really don't need to be with them.
No. No. They're not, even if they say they're friends with you, they're not really being your friend.
No.
It's
They're
not
in it for
friendship.
another reason.
Yeah. Yeah. They get to manipulate you, and that's why they want to be around you.
Right, that's the payoff. That's an episode
Yeah.
another time, because there's a lot of those behaviors why people hang around with us,
Yeah.
when it's not necessarily because they like us, but they're getting some kind of payoff in it. That is spot on accurate.
Yes.
Okay, this sounds really good. So, for our boundary setters, is there one tip or suggestion or food for thought, one positive thing that you want to say to our listeners out there, Jen, about boundary setting?
I would say, I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I would say the biggest thing is just be kind with your boundaries. Be kind. Remember that other people, even if they're manipulating you, they do have feelings. And it's okay if you set a boundary and you have to make it a little firmer or a little stronger, or if you can come back with it so they don't have to stay set in stone. You may have somebody that's like, oh, I get it, and I do want to be around you a little bit more, and you might be able to do that. So just don't feel like they have to stay totally in stone. I guess that's it, but also really stay kind. Kindness is the key.
Kindness is key. I like that. Flexible and patient, right? 'Cause
Yes.
we're all working.
We're all
progress.
learning.
I love that. So, Jen, where would our listeners, if they want to continue this conversation, which I'm guessing this is at least with my, this is a hot topic with the young ones,
Yes.
for sure, and it's a hot topic, I think, for people going through changes later on in life, if they come out of
Yes.
divorce, or if they whatever, fill in the blanks. But so where would they find you? How do they contact you?
Absolutely. So I have a website that has a Pathfinder's Discovery Call. And it's really simple. I think it's going to be down in the notes below, but it's thankfulheartscoaching.com. So it's the word thankful and then hearts, plural, coaching.com. And that's where you can find me. I do which we didn't even talk about, but I'm an accountability ally. So I do help people achieve their goals. And I love that part. But then I'm also a support group, support coach, which is really more of just the belief plus boundaries equals bliss. It's just lifting women up and holding them and really making sure that they're where they want to be in life and that they're getting everything out of life and putting themselves first.
Excellent. I absolutely love that, and I've known Jen for a little bit now, and she's awesome. You're in good hands, definitely, for sure, with
Thank
her.
you.
So I would strongly encourage you to reach out. And yes, it will all be in the blurb down below. So again, that's Thankful Hearts, plural, coaching.com. And
Yes.
Jen Anderson. Okay. Well, thank you for being on the Minecraft podcast, Jen. It was an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. And I hope your listeners just had a wonderful little conversation with us. Because I know I did.
Excellent. All right, so tune in next time for the Minecraft podcast.